Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Priya Guha, and I'm going to be moderating what I hope will be a really insightful panel to complement what you've just heard in the theme of quantum computing and exploring how we unlock new frontiers in this amazing emerging tech space. So let me introduce to you the panelists that we have with us today. So on your right, we have Jonathan Lee-Smith, who's the Executive Director of UK Quantum. Next to Jonathan, we have Kapil Jaiswal, who's the CTO for Quantum AI Global. We also have Kanishka Agarwal, who is the Vice President Sales for QPi AI. Now, we were hoping to have Ajay Chowdhury joining us virtually, but I believe there might be a delay there. So why don't we carry on with the conversation, and if Ajay is able to join us virtually, he will join us on the screen. In which case, Jonathan, I may turn to you just to talk a little bit about UK-India collaboration in the quantum space. We have a really great opportunity with the Indian National Quantum Mission and the work that you're driving in the UK. So what does that collaboration look like? We have perfect. Okay, hold that thought. Ajay, it's an absolute pleasure to have you join us. Thank you so much. So Ajay probably needs very little introduction to many of you as the founder of HCL. But Ajay's here today in his capacity as the chair of the Mission Governing Board for the National Quantum Mission. And Ajay, I know we've only got you for a few minutes, so if I may turn to you first of all, just to share with us a little bit about what the exciting opportunities that you see are for the Indian effort in quantum computing, and what key challenges you need to address to achieve the vision that you set out by 2030.
Thank you for inviting me. What I'd like to mention is that the National Quantum Mission got going early last year, and we've set up 4 verticals within National Quantum Mission, one for computing, one for communication, the third for sensing, and the fourth for materials. And these have been set up at 4 institutions in the country, and they've been adequately funded to take forward the research. In addition to that, we have created a very strong program for supporting startups. There are close to about 109 quantum startups in the country, and we are giving them funding and mentoring for taking them forward. And thirdly, we are working very deeply with the universities to create an undergrad program which we have launched already, and an MS program in quantum technologies will get launched in July this year. So we're making good progress, and we look forward to collaborating with other countries in creating joint IP out of India. We have a large amount of scientists involved in quantum technologies. Although the mission was launched last year, but there was a pre-mission project that we had started, where we have created a large amount of capability, and we are close to about 700 scientists that are working on quantum technologies, and close to another 300 to 500 people working in startups. So that gives you a good view of where we are today.
Oh, thank you, Ajay. That's a fascinating overview of the work with a really strong team of talent behind you. I know you do have to duck out at some point, so thank you for your contribution, and we appreciate you joining us. And maybe, Jonathan, I can come back to you on that question about how does the UK-India collaboration look like, given the work that Ajay's just set out in India?
Thank you very much. So, well, highly complimentary, I would say. If I just back up a little bit, well, first off, about myself, UK Quantum is the association for the UK's quantum industry, so I represent all of the quantum technology companies operating within the UK. Now, you heard earlier from Minister Vallance that quantum technologies are identified as a strategic topic within the UK. And indeed, we've just completed 10 years of the National Quantum Technology Programme and are now looking ahead to the next 10 years. And the key elements for the new program going forward is the focus on 5 very purpose-driven missions, and I think this is really where the alignment with India comes. There's one on quantum computing, one on quantum networking, one on quantum position navigation and timing, really around clocks, distributed sensing, and also probably the different one here from the India missions is around quantum in healthcare. But if I think about a task force, I think the most obvious purpose, obvious goal for a task force is to look at our respective strategies, look at it from a missions point of view, and determine where really are the overlapping priorities, where are the sort of the mutual capabilities, and focusing on how we can help each other delivering on our respective missions.
Fantastic. Kapil, if I may turn to you, one of the things that I'm sure that you're considering in the business climate is how regulatory frameworks adapt at pace to emerging technology. How do you think the UK and India could align regulations and their intellectual property frameworks to enable smoother collaboration?
Yep. Thanks for the question and thanks for inviting me here. Once we look at the regulatory landscape with relation to the deep tech, the future, I will say our economic vibrance, financial resilience, and the military power. These are going to be the derivatives of the, say, quantum and AI and these kind of technologies. Most of these technologies is going to have a dual use and certain amount of regulatory framework, both the import and the export controls are likely to emerge. What is important here is that the democratic countries which align with each other's values and the ideas of a fair world, which are getting aligned together, they should develop a framework where they are easily able to share the progress, synergize our efforts, because quantum is a very diversified space. Even if it's quantum computing, there are 4 or 5 different verticals which are happening. One of them probably will succeed. Similarly, in the quantum communications, people are following different approaches to that. Which one of them will actually succeed in future? It's better that the countries which have a common view of the world align themselves, synergize their resources, harness their power rather than wasting it on multiple fronts, and once they make the breakthrough, joint collaborative breakthroughs, they share the goodies. I think that's the way we will be able to optimize our resource allocations and get a better outlook to the world.
Thank you. And Kanishka, if I may turn to you. We've talked a lot about quantum computing already, and we talked a little bit there about quantum communication, but quantum has so many other applications. What are you seeing in spaces like navigation, sensing, quantum cryptography? Tell us a little bit more about the opportunity space here.
Sure, thank you. And in fact, I think for the benefit of the audience here, right, one of the biggest questions we continuously be asked is, what can quantum do? Can it run my Microsoft Office faster? No, it can't. Can it run a particular game faster? Probably not. So it's really not those applications that are hitherto known to you, right? But look at some of the other applications that you might have. So if, as kids, I'm sure all of you have done puzzles, which had a sort of a traveling salesman sort of a problem. Traveling salesman is a person has to visit about 5 or 6 places. How can he efficiently go visiting all of those 5, 6 places without traversing any route again and again? Now, if I suddenly make those 5 or 6 places to about 40,000 destinations with a load factor of a truck that's moving with so many parcels, and I suddenly change that with the weather variables, the traffic density, now it becomes a really complicated multivariate problem. Typically, these problems don't have a finite solution. When I say finite solution, there isn't a solution, there are multiple solutions, and you would come up with probably one that has the most mean and median. So you'd run an experiment multiple times and see which routes does it come up with, and look at the routes that are most feasible and keep coming again and again. So if you look at statistics, a quantum problem is always a statistical problem. You look at the mean and medians of the problem and say, look, I think route number 6 and 7 have the most frequency of occurrence again and again every time I run this experiment, so I'll push that out. Now start extrapolating this to every other problem statement that you have. Think of drug discovery. in the pharma world, as you're looking at a palette of 100 molecules that are put out there, and they want to get to a stage 4 clinical trial, how do I know which one of these molecules will hit there? That's again a probabilistic sort of a problem statement. I would run all of those molecules and then say, okay, look, these are my 6 molecules that probably have the highest probability of getting to the stage 4 trials. I'll speak about these 5 or 6 molecules right now. We do the same thing in the defense sector. Defense is right now looking at quantum sensing, communications, quantum key distribution. These are ways of making sure your communications are absolutely secure, they're not eavesdropped, and at the same time, they're not broken later when you have quantum computers that exceed a certain qubit. So that's a bigger application, which is where, to Jonathan's point earlier, right? There can be a stronger government-to-government interlock, because this is where, between the UK and India, you've got a fairly friendly dispensation between the two countries. And it becomes very easy for you to exchange information that are related to NatSec. So that is our primary set of applications. Of course, there's a ton of other applications that come out, both in the space of material sciences. There are today car manufacturers that are looking to model their cars on quantum computers. So a big bunch of applications that I'll pull up. And just as I was listening into the other panel before this, large language models today are being trained on GPUs. The day you get to a better quantum computer, which is slightly error-free or a lot more error-free, you'll have LLMs actually being trained on quantum computers at a much more energy-efficient manner than it is today being done on GPUs, and much faster as well.
Thank you. And in your answer there, Kanishka, you touched on something I'm going to come back to you on, AJ, if I may, which is the point about UK-India collaboration in this space. Under your work at the National Quantum Mission, what do you think the moonshots are where actually there could be UK-India collaboration?
Well, actually, we made excellent progress in India on quantum communication. But the area that we believe would be of great value for us to collaborate would be quantum computing. Our best quantum computing capability in the country is around 25 qubits at this moment, and we want to get to 1,000. So how do we get to that 1,000, and what technology should we use? Are there any steps by which we can leapfrog from where we are to where we want to be? So I think this is really would be an area where we could have a joint collaboration. We could create IP in India, working together with our scientists and UK scientists and labs that are working on this, so that we can take this forward and leapfrog.
Thank you. And if I may, Jonathan, ask you a similar question, which is, if you had a clean slate where you could define what the greatest opportunity is for UK-India collaboration over the next sort of 5 to 10 years, what would you identify?
Well, really it's across the board. So I'll pick on one that hasn't really been touched on, which is around the quantum sensing market. Arguably quantum sensing, so looking underground, detecting gases, clocks sort of fall under that category, are seen as one of the earliest opportunities for quantum technologies, but they struggle with being a broad category with lots of niche markets, which makes it very hard to develop high-tech, deep tech when any given segment is actually relatively small. And I think that's where collaboration between our countries, i.e. for a total much far greater market, could provide a lot of help, I think. Focusing on things like transport infrastructure, telecoms utility deployments, those sorts of things. So that's a real priority. I mean, that's in addition to the quantum computing, and I will say quantum networking as well. Because that's a particular area within the UK.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe, Kapil, I could ask you a similar question. And if you had that clean slate, where would you want the collaboration to be happening?
Yeah, so I will say I don't have a clean slate. What has happened, the UK government has just identified 10 specific areas as part of their national quantum strategy. And once I look at those areas, what emerges very, very clearly is the quantum networks. They have got a specific project for sensors, they have got a specific project for photon sources, they have got a specific project for quantum networking. So I think that's one area where the moment I look out of 10, I think 6 of those startups the research efforts are towards the network. So I think that's where the area where I would like to collaborate in that direction, because we ourselves are kind of a company which is working on the quantum router and quantum internet. So that's the area of immediate I look at the collaboration opportunities.
And Kanishka, would you also say quantum networks, quantum sensing, quantum computing? What would be your wish list?
I'll put in, as I was mentioning earlier during the roundtable that we had in the morning, right? I think I'm more interested from the commercial side of it, right? Which is access to markets. Access to markets from both ends. The access for UK companies to have an access for talent base that sits here in India, the research centers that sit here in India, access to that. And vice versa, which is the Indian organizations having access to markets as well as partners in the UK. I think that would be a good symbiotic relationship for it to begin in. Typically, we've seen, especially with nascent industries, you need a bit of support and handholding across the border. And as they scale up and you've got strong partnerships built in, then that becomes a bit of a network multiplier effect, because you can then go to market into other countries. You've got possibly a system integrator sitting here, researchers sitting somewhere else, and a strong startup sitting somewhere else, and together becoming a hub for delivering these solutions out.
And does that include a sort of quantum passport to allow people to work overseas?
Hopefully, we should be able to get there someday.
Anything that makes it easier. Yes.
Sorry, please say that again, Jonathan.
I was going to say anything that makes it easier for mobility of people and talent. Yeah.
You heard it here. There's a quantum passport coming, hopefully, team. I'm afraid we're going to have to draw this to a close, but thank you so much for a very fascinating insight into the world of quantum computing, and particularly the opportunities that lie in the UK-India partnership. I hope you'll join me in thanking our wonderful panel, AJ, Kanishka, Kapil, and Jonathan. Thank you so much for your contributions today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Anisha Jain, for the next session.
Thank you.